MC Hammer versus the Crips. The story comes from Benito, one of MC Hammer's old vocalists, who shared an incident from back in the day that showed a whole different side of Hammer, one that most people never saw. According to Benito, after a show in Los Angeles, Hammer and his crew were packing up and getting ready to head back to their hotel. Everything was cool until they noticed someone pulling up who instantly changed the mood, Michael Concepcion. Now, Michael wasn't just some random dude rolling by. He was one of the original founders of the Crips, one of the biggest and most feared gangs in America. Though he'd been paralyzed since 1997 after a gang-related shooting, Michael still held serious power in LA street circles. When he showed up that night, he wasn't alone. He had a crew of Crips with him, and it was clear this wasn't just a friendly visit.
It's this dude in his wheelchair and about 4 or 5 dudes with him, hanging out. I know they Crips because my cousins all Crips in LA. So I'm like, there's some gangbangers. What they doing out here?
Michael told Hammer he wanted to talk. What he really meant was that Hammer needed protection while he was in Los Angeles. He warned him that LA could get dangerous and that if Hammer wasn't careful, anything could happen. It was more of a veiled threat than an offer, but Hammer wasn't the type to be intimidated. He asked why he'd need anyone's protection when he already had his own squad, and not just any squad. Hammer rolled deep with 12 bodyguards, and these weren't just big security guys in suits. Some of them were real street dudes, men who had done time, and men who didn't hesitate when things got serious.
I'm saying, protection for what? See, man, I got 12 bodyguards out here, and 4 or 5 of them straight killers. You know what I'm saying? So, what you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I don't need no protection.
So when Hammer basically brushed off Michael's offer, it didn't go over well. Michael pressed harder, repeating that Hammer should watch his back, and that's when the situation started to heat up. Hammer's crew was ready to go right then and there, hands on weapons, waiting for a signal, but Hammer stopped them. Instead of letting things explode, he stepped forward himself and made it clear to Michael that he wasn't scared. He told him one phone call from him could shut everything down, meaning if Hammer wanted to, he had his own people who could make life hard for anyone who crossed him. Apparently, Michael got the message loud and clear. The next morning, the same Crip OG who had pulled up to intimidate Hammer came back to apologize.
Our people looking like, yeah, I'm waiting for you to move. Hammer, hey, what's up? He said, hey man, it's like this. I'll make one phone call and all this will go away. Hammer said, what's up, man? He said, man, I apologize for the thing. I didn't know, the people you knew and whatever, this and that. And I apologize for what I did, brother. It's all good. We cool. We good. And Hammer's like, yeah, it's all right.
And that says a lot. For one of the most respected gang founders in LA, to apologize to a rapper from Oakland meant Hammer's reputation ran deep. A lot of people don't realize just how dangerous Hammer's connections were. One of the reasons he commanded that level of respect was because his family was tied to Felix Mitchell, aka The Cat, one of Oakland's most feared drug lords. Mitchell ran the 69 Mob, a powerful organization that controlled much of Oakland's drug trade in the late 70s and early 80s. At the height of his empire, he was reportedly pulling in over $1 million a month from crack and heroin. The 69 Mob was so feared that when the FBI finally took it down, the structure didn't just vanish. It left behind a network of loyal people who stayed connected, and some of that influence flowed right into Hammer's world. So when Hammer blew up in 1990 with Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him, which went on to sell over 22 million copies worldwide, he didn't turn his back on where he came from. If anything, he doubled down. He poured money back into his city and surrounded himself with people from his old neighborhood. At one point, he had about 200 people on his payroll, family, friends, security, and homeboys from Oakland, far more than any other rapper at the time. MC Hammer puts $50,000 on third base. The whole situation started with what seemed like a harmless bit of rap rivalry, but it got dark real quick. The tension first began when MC Hammer took a few shots at Run-D.M.C, and third base decided to jump in and escalate things. In their 1989 track The Cactus, they fired back at Hammer, but instead of keeping it on wax, they went personal. They dropped a disrespectful line that went straight for Hammer's mother, saying the Cactus turned Hammer's mother out. It was a slick play on words, referencing both their Cactus album and Hammer's hit song Turn This Mother Out. But for Hammer and his crew, it wasn't clever. It was crossing the line.
We were saying our album was doper, but we were saying it in New York slick shit. Like we had some slick talk coming out our mouth.
Right.
Hammer thought we were talking about us, his mom.
Oh.
Now, MC Hammer wasn't just some pop rap star with flashy pants and dance moves. He had a serious team behind him, and the one leading that charge was his brother, Louis Burrell. Lewis wasn't just Hammer's manager or the president of his record label. He was the muscle behind the brand. Deeply connected to the streets of Oakland, Lewis had real ties and made it clear that disrespecting Hammer came with consequences. When Third Base dropped that line, Lewis took it personally. According to Third Base member MC Search, things escalated to a dangerous level almost immediately. As the group was preparing to fly out to Los Angeles for a promo run, Def Jam president Carmen Ashurst Watson got a chilling phone call. On the other end, a man asked if Third Base was on their way to LA. When she confirmed they were, the voice, calm but cold, simply said, "Good, they're dead." The caller claimed to be none other than Louis Burrell.
And here's somebody say, is Third Base on their way to LA? And she goes, yeah. And the voice says, "Good, they're dead. This is Louis Burrell," and hangs up.
This wasn't just talk either. Search later said that fellow Def Jam artist Eric B. told him there was a real $50,000 hit put out on their heads. The word on the street was that the job had been passed to the Los Angeles Crips. And if you knew anything about how Hammer's network worked back then, you'd know that wasn't far-fetched. The man had deep connections, and he was known to protect his image with the same intensity he performed with on stage. To keep things from going completely off the rails, Def Jam co-founder Russell Simmons decided to take precautions. He brought in a known street figure named Barefoot Boogie to act as Third Base's security while they were in LA. Boogie was well respected in hip-hop circles and had enough credibility to keep potential threats at bay, but even that didn't make the situation feel safe. While in LA, Search and his girlfriend went out shopping at a mall, with Boogie tagging along just in case. Everything seemed normal at first. Fans recognized Search and he started signing a few autographs. But out of nowhere, a group of Crips showed up. They surrounded him, asking questions and pressing him about who he was and where he was from. It could have gone bad fast, but Boogie stepped in and defused it before anyone got hurt. Instead of taking that close call as a warning, Search decided to keep poking the bear. The very next day, while live on a radio show, he called MC Hammer a coward and claimed he was hiding behind his goons. That one comment lit the match all over again. Minutes later, the radio station got a call from someone claiming to be with the Rollin' 60s Crips. The message was short and terrifying. "We're going to kill you."
Live. Greg Mack, who's this? Rollin' 60 Crip, N-word, we finna kill them. Boop! Out!
That was enough to make Search and his crew realize things had gone too far. They bolted out of the station, jumped into their car, and sped toward their hotel. But it wasn't over yet. As they drove, a car full of Crips started following him, windows down, eyes locked on their vehicle. At one point, the gang members even pointed guns at them, making it crystal clear that this was no bluff. Somehow, Search and his crew managed to make it back to their hotel without getting shot, but the fear was real. For the rest of their time in Los Angeles, Third Base basically went underground. They wore disguises, changed their routes, and avoided public appearances as much as possible. They did what they had to do to finish their press run, and the second they wrapped it up, they got out of the city. Years later, MC Search admitted the whole situation left him shaken. MC Hammer vs. Ice Cube. Back in 1991, Ice Cube dropped the video for a single True to the Game, and it didn't just shake up the charts. It stirred up serious drama in the rap world. In the video, there's a scene that caught everybody's attention. A hardcore rapper suddenly trading his street clothes for a flashy red sequined suit, looking more like a pop star than a rapper. The imagery was clear. This was a shot at someone who had sold out and gone too commercial. And then came the lyrics, "Now look at yourself, boy, you done flip-flopped, giving our music away to the mainstream." Don't you know they ain't down with the team? They just sent they boss over, put a bug in your ear, and now you crossed over. It didn't take long for people to figure out who Cube was talking about. The message wasn't subtle. It was aimed squarely at MC Hammer.
What did Ice Cube and Hammer have issues about?
The video he made.
He had a video.
I mean, he tied Hammer up, put the duct tape on him, threw him in the trunk.
At that time, Hammer was on top of the world. His music was everywhere. You couldn't turn on a TV without seeing him dancing across the screen in those massive parachute pants. He had platinum albums, endorsement deals, commercials, movies, even a Saturday morning cartoon. Hammer wasn't just a rapper. He was a brand, a global superstar. But that kind of fame came with a price. While millions of fans loved him, a lot of people inside the hip-hop community weren't feeling what he represented. To some, Hammer's clean-cut image, polished choreography, and pop-friendly sound made him look more like an entertainer than an MC. Artists who prided themselves on keeping hip-hop raw and street saw him as a sellout, somebody who turned rap into something safe for the suburbs. Ice Cube, who had built his reputation on authenticity and aggression, clearly saw Hammer as everything he didn't want hip-hop to become. So when Cube released True to the Game with those not-so-subtle shots, the streets were buzzing. Everyone was talking about how he called out Hammer for crossing over and letting corporate America control the sound of rap. But if there was one thing people didn't realize, it was that MC Hammer wasn't just a pop star with a smile. He had serious street ties, and he didn't take disrespect lightly. According to those who were around back then, Hammer didn't just brush it off. One afternoon while he was relaxing in his hotel room, someone called and mentioned they just spotted Ice Cube at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Hollywood. That was all Hammer needed to hear. He rounded up his entourage, guys who weren't dancers or security guards, but real street dudes who had his back, and they rolled out immediately.
So they called and said, he there, he over here right now, Hammer, he gonna get some food. He said, stall him out. Like, whatever, don't let him leave, you don't hold him. So we run up there, about 8 or 9 of us.
When they pulled up, they caught Ice Cube just as he was leaving the restaurant. What happened next didn't involve a lot of talking. Hammer walked right up to Cube and made it clear that he didn't appreciate being disrespected, especially not in public.
Why are you trying to tear me down as a black man? You know what I'm saying? Putting that gang shit up in here, put me in the truck and all that kind of crazy, man. Our people don't want to see that. And then you disrespecting me in the music.
Cube, realizing he was outnumbered and that Hammer wasn't playing games, backed off quickly and promised it would never happen again. MC Hammer and Redman. Back in 1992, Redman was still a wild young MC coming up in the game, fresh off his debut album, What the Album. But one thing on that album would get him into serious trouble. On his intro track, Funky Uncles, Redman had a skit where one of the characters started clowning MC Hammer and even went as far as disrespecting his family, saying things along the lines of how nobody in Hammer's family was worth a damn. He ain't ish, mama ain't ish, daddy ain't ish, ain't nobody ish. And Hammer didn't take it that way at all.
And I did the skit, and I was like, you know what? That goddamn MC Hammer, him, his mama, and the whole nine. That came up to me on MTV Crips on the last episode they had.
At that time, MC Hammer was a global superstar who had crossed over in a way hip-hop had never seen before. But behind the fame, Hammer was still from the streets of Oakland, and the one thing he didn't do was talk about his family, especially not his mother. So when word got back to him about what Redman said on that record, Hammer decided it needed to be addressed directly. Sometime after the album dropped, Redman and his crew found themselves in Oakland for a show. They probably thought it would be just another stop on the tour, but Hammer's people were already aware he was in town, and they weren't too happy. According to Redman himself, things got tense real fast. Before long, he and his crew realized they were being followed. Cars started closing in on them, and it became clear that this wasn't just some random coincidence. Hammer's affiliates had rolled up deep and were letting Redman know he had crossed a line. Redman later admitted they barely made it out of the city. He said the situation got so real that they had to get out of Oakland as fast as they could because Hammer's people weren't playing games. They were almost boxed in, and if they hadn't moved quickly, it could have gone really bad. That experience stuck with him for years. Fast forward to 1995, it's the final episode of Yo MTV Raps, one of the most legendary hip-hop shows ever, and the biggest names in rap are all there. Hammer and Redman both happened to be on set that day. By this time, the tension had cooled down, but Hammer hadn't forgotten. He walked up to Redman, calm but serious, and told him straight up that he didn't appreciate what was said about his mother. Redman, who by now knew exactly what Hammer was capable of, didn't hesitate to apologize. He told him he understood and that it wouldn't happen again.
MC Hammer was there. That pushed me. He was like, Red, I'm gonna tell you something, you young. But I don't allow nobody talking about my mama. You understand me? I said, yes, sir.
Years later, in an interview, Redman looked back on that situation with a lot of humility. He admitted he learned his lesson that day. He said he had heard about Hammer's reputation, but seeing how real it got in person made it hit different. From then on, he made it clear he had nothing but respect for Hammer and the Bay Area. MC Hammer versus Jay-Z. By the time 2010 rolled around, MC Hammer had already lived through one of hip-hop's wildest career arcs. He went from selling millions of records and performing in front of packed stadiums to losing his fortune and rebuilding his life as a minister and TV producer. His story had become something of a cautionary tale and unfortunately a punchline for a lot of rappers who came after him. One of those rappers happened to be Jay-Z, and Hammer wasn't about to let that slide. The whole situation started when Jay-Z dropped a line that rubbed Hammer the wrong way. On Kanye West's track So Appalled, Jay-Z rapped, "Show me where the boat is, Ferrari Testarossas," and Hammer went broke so you know I'm more focused. I lost 30 mil so I spent another 30, cause unlike Hammer, 30 million can't hurt me. To most fans, it sounded like just another slick Jay-Z bar, confident, clever, maybe even harmless. But to Hammer, that line hit deep. He had lived that downfall, he had felt the world laugh at him when the money dried up, and now here was one of the biggest rappers alive using that same pain for a punchline. So Hammer decided to respond the old-fashioned way, through diss tracks and public smoke. Not long after the song dropped, Hammer took to Twitter and let off a barrage of shots at Jay. He called him names like J-Ho and even tried to turn it into a trending topic by tagging him as Hellboy. But that wasn't the end of it. Hammer wanted to make it clear that he wasn't the type of rapper to just let someone talk slick about him and walk away untouched. He promised that he was going to get back at Jay-Z, and sure enough, he followed through. That same year, Hammer released a full-on diss record and music video called Better Run Run. In the video, Hammer plays this larger-than-life character, part preacher, part CEO, part boxer, while the Jay-Z lookalike is portrayed as an overweight man constantly running from a figure dressed as the devil. It was over the top, it was dramatic, and it had that classic Hammer flair. In one scene, Hammer's character even baptizes the Jay-Z stand-in, symbolically saving him from evil. And while the video looked a little dated with its dancing and cheesy visuals, Hammer made sure to get a few sharp bars in. At one point, he rapped, "Yo Jay, I got a reasonable doubt. If I knocked on your door, would you come on out?" Then he followed up with, "I don't rock your wear." These lines were deliberate digs at Jay's debut album, Reasonable Doubt, and his Rocawear clothing brand. Hammer explained that the issue wasn't just about the money line. He said it was about principle. He claimed that during his era, if someone mentioned your name in a song, you handled it directly, no matter who it was. But he also hinted that there was something deeper fueling his anger. As a born-again Christian, Hammer had a problem with how Jay-Z used religious and biblical imagery in his videos and lyrics, believing that Jay was playing with sacred symbols in a disrespectful way. So for Hammer, this beef wasn't just about ego, it was about faith and values too. When Jay-Z was later asked about the whole situation in an interview with DJ Semtex, he responded in classic Hove fashion. He said he didn't even realize that what he said was off limits. To him, it was just a casual line, something rappers had said before. But Jay made an interesting point. When he says something, people tend to believe it so strongly that it stops being just a lyric and turns into something personal. He admitted that he didn't mean to offend Hammer or make it sound malicious.
How I know I was the first person to ever say that. Am I? I mean, I'm not. Am I? I know I've heard that before. I don't even know when I say things. Like, I think people believe me so much that they take it a different way. It's not like it's not rap anymore at that point. Now it's like in a personal attack. I didn't mean it. I said some great things about him in the book that I have coming out.
Jay-Z also mentioned that he had actually written some really positive things about Hammer in his upcoming book, Decoded. He said he respected Hammer's journey and even praised his come-up from East Oakland. According to Jay, Hammer would probably be embarrassed when he read it because he'd realized there was no real malice behind that line at all. And when asked if he planned to clap back with a diss track of his own, Jay didn't hesitate. He said absolutely not. MC Hammer vs. Too Short and LL Cool J. Back in the early 90s, Oakland was buzzing. The Bay Area had officially planted its flag in hip-hop, and for the first time, multiple acts from the city were going platinum within the same year. Digital Underground dropped S-Packets and set things off. Too Short followed up with Short Dogs in the House, and not long after, MC Hammer smashed the charts with Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him. Oakland had never seen that kind of national spotlight before, 3 hometown artists dominating the mainstream at once. But while they all rep the same city, things weren't exactly peaceful behind the scenes. In 2017, Too Short opened up about the fact that he and MC Hammer actually had a quiet beef going on during the late 80s and early 90s. It wasn't a full-on street war, but there was definitely tension, the kind of rivalry that brewed between two local kings trying to define what Oakland hip-hop really stood for. Too Short explained that he had known of Hammer long before the fame, but not for rapping. In those early days, Hammer was known around Oakland as a dancer, always at the clubs, moving in sync with his crew, especially a guy named Ace. They dress alike, hit the same routines, and crowd up dance floors. Hammer had energy, confidence, and a local following. Short said he'd see him around, but never really thought much of him as an artist. To him, Hammer was just that flashy guy who danced a lot and hung around with the Oakland A's players. Then, out of nowhere, Hammer blew up. He went from being a familiar face at parties to rolling through Oakland with bodyguards, entourages, and major label backing. He had Capitol Records behind him, and his single was everywhere. Short remembered thinking, who the hell is this guy and all these people around him? It was disbelief. Short had built his name from the ground up, selling tapes out of his trunk and rapping about the gritty realities of Oakland life. He prided himself on being self-made.
One day, here comes Hammer with about 15 people, like an entourage. And I remember somebody said, "Who is that?" And somebody else said, "I don't know." Third time, same crew, here they come, pushing their way through, bodyguards. They're like, "Who is that nigga?" Somebody said, "Nigga, that's Hammer." After that, the nigga was instantly famous. I don't know how he did that.
So when Hammer came out swinging with pop-friendly records and choreographed routines, Short wasn't impressed. To him, it felt like Hammer had skipped the line, that he was more of an entertainer than a rapper. Too Short even took some subliminal shots in his 1990 song Short But Funky, dropping lines like, "You never catch me on the mic rapping a dance tune, I like it kinda mellow with the sound of the bass boom. The style is mine, I've been doing it for 10, you might say it's simple, but I'm making my ends. See, I don't trip on a punk cause I jack him, Too Short plus the cuss words equals platinum. What would I look like dancing on a stage? I'll wave my hand and do it like the old days. But some dumb fool wanna take it out of hand with 50 million dancers and a big old band. That ain't me, I'm from the old school. Play the instrumental, get the mic, and I'm cool." It wasn't hard to figure out who he was talking about. Hammer's whole image matched those lines perfectly. Short admitted years later that Hammer was absolutely the target. They were neighbors in Oakland, and they talked slick about each other to mutual friends, just keeping it straight. There wasn't real animosity, but it was competitive tension, the kind that happens when two local stars are fighting to define the city's sound. But then Hammer did something that really rubbed Too Short the wrong way. He went on the Arsenio Hall show, and when Arsenio asked him about Oakland hip-hop, Hammer said something along the lines of, "I'm the only rapper from Oakland." That set Short off. He'd been grinding for years, selling tapes long before Hammer got a record deal. To hear someone erase that history on national TV hit a nerve. So Short fired back through his music and in conversation, and while he was ready to take it further, it didn't come to that. Before things could really blow up, Hammer's older brother Louis Burrell, who was known as the serious, business-minded enforcer of the Burrell family, made a call. Louis told Short that they had just come off a grueling tour where someone had been killed, and they didn't want to come home to another conflict. The conversation was calm but direct, and just like that, the tension cooled off. From there, things actually flipped into mutual respect. Both camps realized there wasn't room for beef when they could be uplifting Oakland together. Eventually, they even worked on music together, like It's Getting Hot remixed by the team, proving that whatever had once been between them was long dead. Too Short later called Hammer and his crew family. But that wasn't the only time Hammer found himself caught in lyrical crossfire. Around that same late 80s period, LL Cool J also took a jab at him. On his track To the Break of Dawn, LL dropped the line, "You little snake in the grass, you swing a hammer but you couldn't break glass. Give me a lighter, woof, now you're cut loose from that Jerry curl juice." Naturally, Hammer took offense, but years later, LL cleared the air, saying he never had a real problem with Hammer. According to him, Hammer had said his name first, and back then, that was all it took to start a lyrical exchange. LL said it wasn't personal, just part of the game. He actually respected Hammer and understood that they were both products of their time, navigating fame and competition in their own ways.